Hi, and welcome. My name is Stacia. Thank you for joining me on another storytime session. In today's storytime session, I'd like to share my recent retreat with Ayahuasca. Also, in this session, I will be sharing a beautiful meditative exercise for sitting with uncomfortable feelings. Okay, so let's get into it, right? So about a week ago, I went to Costa Rica for a ayahuasca retreat with the company Soulina Retreats. And this is my second time sitting with the medicine with the same facilitators and hosts. The hosts were Victor and Patty Odo. Also, Aaron Dowdy originally wasn't going to attend this retreat, and I guess the medicine called to him, so he came to the retreat. So he was there for a pretty big portion of the retreat, I guess. So he sat with us for the first 2 nights of ceremony. And with this ayahuasca retreat, there are 3 nights of sitting in ceremony with the medicine. So the first day was great, just kind of getting there, arriving, eating, meeting everybody, going over logistical stuff with Patty. And the second day of the retreat is where we started the ceremony. And prior to the ayahuasca ceremony, we first sat with a breathwork ceremony. Excuse me. And this is the third time I've sat with Victor and Patty for one of their breathwork ceremonies, which was absolutely incredible. So, the first time I ever experienced a breathwork ceremony, and also the first time with Victor and Patty, was back in 2023 in Sedona at Aaron's Sedona event. And how I would describe the ceremony or my experience, it's like a mass exorcism of stuck energies or unprocessed emotion, right? And it just allows the air, the life prana, the breath to come in and release and cleanse that out. So not everything is traumatic. Sometimes it's joyful and all sorts of different ranges of things, right? So for me, which was really unique about this breathwork ceremony with them, was I found myself deeply connecting to my ancestors. And something similar happened like this back in 2023. And at the time, I was seeing and experiencing a lot of these spirits in Sedona. And I know that has a lot of indigenous native land, right? And so at the time, I didn't understand that some of those native faces I was seeing were also, some of them were my ancestors. And that comes from, I believe, the indigenous Puerto Rican side from my father's side. So in this breathwork ceremony, a lot of the ancestors were coming in, and maybe even some like Celtic, like Druid ancestors from my mother's side. Because what was happening is I became this vessel, this channel for these sacred ancestors, and they began mourning. And it was kind of like this, like thing coming out of me, these sounds of like these mourning songs without words that are just full of sound and working on my throat chakra, perhaps. But so I surrendered to my ancestors, and they began mourning, and it was coming through me. So this wasn't tied to a specific traumatic event. I wasn't remembering, oh, this one time when I was a child and this person hurt me and I'm crying and I'm mourning and grief and all of those things. This was just like a full experience release of grief and mourning. And then towards the end, this is so beautiful. My uncle Ronnie, who's my mom's twin brother who passed away, and I didn't know him very well. And I have a video where I talk about a meditative experience where he came to me to help me with a forgiveness exercise. And so recently I've been working with him, and when he comes in, it's always like, hey, kid. So in this breathwork ceremony, towards the end, my Uncle Ronnie came in, and I just saw him in this like vast empty space, holding like a newborn baby swaddled in a white blanket, and feeling that that was me, like he was holding me. And after I've had some time to process this experience, a couple of things have come through for me. So at this time, I feel as though this baby is representing the new birth, the rebirth of myself, which is really special because in 2024, I experienced a vision of myself as this super pregnant, beautiful, motherly person, like my higher self or higher version of myself that was pregnant. And at the time, I'd hoped that it had meant that I was going to conceive again, but I'm still single, so I'm missing that part of it, right? But I realize now, or what's come to me now since this experience, is that it was birthing a new soul of myself, a new aspect of myself was being birthed. And that version of me is now this like sweet baby. So that was really powerful and really beautiful. And this breathwork ceremony really kind of helped me to surrender and open up to these energies and these experiences and connection to myself, and a great release. And even though a lot of those energies coming out of me were not very pleasant, I allowed myself to let those go and channel those without so much re traumatizing myself with these specific events and stories and so on, right? So that was really beautiful. And I do have to say, after sitting with Victor and Patty for the third time in a few years with breathwork, they have grown so much, right? So I really feel like they're really mastering their craft and their skill as leaders and facilitators and space holders for this beautiful sacred work. So I love that, right? So moving forward, the first night of ceremony, the same day as the breathwork ceremony, I have all the feelings, you know. My ceremony back in 2024 with Soulina Retreats was really heavy. And I actually made a video. It's posted here on my YouTube channel, my first ayahuasca journey or journey with ayahuasca. I can't remember. But that was a really heavy experience. So I resisted the medicine a lot, and I had a lot of density and a lot of just subconscious things and suffering that I wasn't sitting with, and it was really heavy. And although it was really beautiful, I resisted the medicine. So this time, walking through it again, the first night, I had a lot of fear. Like I started to get scared. I go, no, like I don't want to go through that again, you know? And I sat with some of the, like, I guess participants. I can't think of another word right now, but brothers and sisters in the ayahuasca tribe for Soulina Retreat this time around. And, did a little hape and got grounded and a little bit clearer and just kind of felt less fear. I was able to kind of come out of that fear aspect and go back into a little more presence, a little more groundedness, right? Which is really beautiful. So, walking down to the ceremonies, sitting with the facilitators, medicine men and women, and our hosts. The medicine, the first cup was not too powerful, but what I found, it was really gentle, but also extremely profound for me. So I was also on my cycle, on my menstrual cycle, and so I was really sensitive anyway. But I began grieving, and I wasn't having so much of a visual experience as I was, on the inner journey, sitting with the inner world, the shadow, and things were arising for me, and I was experiencing them And Mama Aya was kind of like this subtle background energy, right? That's how I can describe this first night. And what happened is in this meditative experience, I began releasing grief and sadness, and an unexpected thing came up for me, and that was my babies. So I have had 3 miscarriages over the years, and I was unable to grieve at these different times in my life. Um, and I was only able to process so much to kind of, keep calm and carry on and push through. I didn't have the emotional capacity for myself to grieve. And in the practice of presence and silence and surrendering, they came in and they said, "I love you, mommy." And then it was just this divine experience and knowing and information download all at once. And this was not something I had expected. Oh, I forgot. So, my intention for this experience retreat with ayahuasca um, came to me a few days before. I was actually visited by the spirit of Aya. And I was kind of in and out of this dream state when you're about to fall asleep. You're kind of like, She came to me and she was showing me different things or possibilities of myself. So for my meditation practice and meditation business, she was showing me as like this complete like yogi practitioner who had all these like, strong powers, right? And so I was kind of going through those, and, I just said to her, "I just want to be a good mother." That's really what I wanted, was to be a good mother. And on my healing journey, because of the inner child work and the shadow work I'm doing, I've become really conscious of what it means to be a mother, to that ability of consciousness that I had at that point, right? And so going into ceremony, knowing that's what I wanted, um, I think that's part of what happened. So as I was softening and surrendering to the medicine, into the world of spirit, I was able to receive these beautiful souls, my children, my babies. And then I allowed myself, with the support of Mama Aya, to grieve. And this was a very painful experience. And I can see the great growth in myself, because in 2024, I had a lot of resistance. But that ayahuasca retreat really pushed me into a deep dive of self mastery, of self discovery, shadow work, protective beliefs, inner child work. And because of that work that I've been doing over these years, I can see how much I've softened and how much compassion and presence I'm able to have for myself, and capacity to withhold certain levels of suffering and discomfort within myself. And I'm still really on this journey. I think I'm just like my Uncle Ronnie showing me that newborn baby, like that new rebirth. That's where I am, I think, with this journey. It's just that little baby, right? In the great scheme of things, I'm just an infant. So here I am grieving my children and realizing that it was such a disservice to me, but also to my babies, to not honor them. And then forgiving myself for not being able to at that time, and recognizing that aspect and version of myself in time, she was doing the best that she could. So this is a multi-dimensional, multifaceted experience, right? And while I'm going through this process, there starts to become multidimensional things happening, right? That I become aware of. And that's the guidance of ayahuasca, Mama Aya, and like the Holy Spirit and myself. And there's different layers of myself that I'm experiencing. And it's the grieving mother who miscarried. And then it's the compassionate mother of myself, forgiving myself for what I wasn't able to do at that time. And then there's the aspect of myself opening my heart, right? So there's all of these things. And where I'm at it with it now as I try to explain this deeply profound experience for me, right? Is just that. So sitting with all of that, releasing the grief, and then receiving the love, allowing myself to receive such beautiful love from my babies. And forgive me. And so, receiving this love, they were teaching me and showing me how worthy of love that I was, in spite of how I felt about myself, and softening myself enough to allow these energies to come in and to honor, right? So that was really beautiful. And so some of the stuff that was also happening, that was like the biggest experience that I can recall from the first night. Of course, I was having some like third eye experiences with different spirits were coming to me, animal spirits, ancestors, indigenous spirits, spirits of the land, bugs. I was with these mama and baby bug. It almost kind of looked like a tick or like a ladybug. And it was very 2D, but there was like, so they were all in black, and then there was all this crazy color. And she was just like, it was another reflection of that mothering energy, right? With her baby. And I got to see and connect into that world and that energy for a moment, and just how beautiful and divine and deeply connected all of these things are in the world of, I'm going to call it spirit, in the realm of spirit, right? And that was really profound. And then, yeah, I just allowed myself to be curious. It was almost like a newborn baby, in the baby carriage or baby crib with the toys that circle around. Like I was the baby, and Mama Aya was showing me all of these things in spirit and these beings. And sometimes I was afraid, and I would be like, Mama, I'm afraid. Or sometimes I was like, hi, how are you? Hi, who are you? What are you? In that childlike essence. So that was the first night of ceremony. And so the next day was a lot of up and down with grief, and also joy and just immense love. And this is the first time in my life where I've experienced a love so profound and joy so profound that it brought me to tears. So perhaps to the outsider, I just looked like I was suffering and grieving a lot and sad a lot, which some of it was. But also some of it was just so strong and so beautiful that I was just so overcome by joy and love that it just made me cry. And my babies, they would speak to me, and they would come to me, and the plants would communicate with me, and I would feel this beautiful love, this healing energy, and then the grieving energy. So that was really beautiful. So the next day, that was part of the experience for me. And then we had an integration circle, and I'm really thankful that Victor was the, I guess, leader of that integration circle for me. We were in smaller groups because I think his, masculine connection and just being grounded in that masculine energy really allowed me to share what I was experiencing with the group and to openly discuss it. Um, because it's like this wild emotional energy and it was a lot and a lot of vulnerability. So I was really thankful for that. And I will say that so Patty decides what host in her group, of her crew, of her tribe, or whatever, is going to which group. So, um, I'm just really grateful for that. So that was perfect for me. And then listening to other people's stories and experiences with the medicine. So then the second night, I had much, I didn't really have any fear, a little bit of that nervous energy, right? I'm going to take a drink. Hold on. So that second night was less fear, a little nervousness. I started listening to my music, the Heart Sutra, the Zen Heart Sutra, listening to teachings from Thich Nhat Hanh, and a little suffering, little pain. And then my Christian music from Hillsong, I Surrender, and Oceans, and some other beautiful, music. And some of the women in the house that I was with, we were singing and dancing, and we were in gratitude and in surrender and just acceptance and this beautiful, like, loving energy, right? So I was really priming myself for, another sacred dance with Mama Aya. And so, yeah, I walked into the second ceremony much more comfortable, and this ceremony was probably the strongest of the 3 nights for me, and it was really powerful, and it was a lot of that surrender, and I found myself deepening my relationship with surrendering to the unknown and also communicating to Mama, who came in and was really having conversations with me. And she was calling me. She would say, "My sweet girl, come back home, my sweet girl." And that was part of the work with presence, and then kind of wandering down these spirals, these stories, these energies, these experiences. And she would kind of let me loose, like a mom letting a little toddler walk and explore, and then reeling me back in when it wasn't safe for me or too much or time to come back in. So this was back and forth, and I was exploring these energies within myself and within these realms of spirit and just deep surrender. And at one point, at the second cup, after I purged in the bathroom, I couldn't quite go back to my bed, and I was at the other side. And oh, yeah, so the first night, I just remembered I wanted to be as close as possible to the bathrooms because when my first ayahuasca ceremony, I was on the toilet a lot. So I wanted to be close to the bathrooms. But it didn't work out that way for me the second night. And that's okay. So I was on the other side of the room and I couldn't quite make it back. And one of the facilitators, a medicine woman, came. She was trying to help me, or she was helping me, and I just allowed her to assist me. And, I was a little scared, but just knew that I could trust her and be safe with her and that it was okay to need help, right? Which is a beautiful thing for me, is being able to trust, because I've had so much trauma, childhood trauma, physical trauma, sexual trauma, abuse, emotional trauma, and even in my early adulthood, So that was a really beautiful experience, was to allow myself, and see myself being safely held by another human. And so she was beautiful, and we ended up finding a seat, relatively close to the bathroom. And this is where I'm going to describe this as best as I can as the Holy Spirit, because that's kind of what happened. In my best way to describe this is that I was completely taken over, which was really terrifying, and I would feel the fear rising and the intensity rising, and I try to breathe through it like I'm in birth, and just go through the motions and allow myself to move through this intensity, right? And so I was moving through this intensity, and I finally surrender, and my body's I can feel there's so much movement, and there's all of this stuff happening. And I can best way I can describe this for me is kind of almost like a Kundalini type of thing, or just the Holy Spirit in those churches when the Spirit's moving through your body. And it was like the medicine, the spirits were just cleansing my body. And I say Holy Spirit because for me, that's what it was. It was its divine, beautiful spirit. And it was just cleaning me out and moving through and healing my energy body, my spiritual body. And all of these things were happening, and it was so deep. And then I was able to tap into such love for myself. And I was holding myself, and sometimes I was holding my babies. And I would touch my stomach a lot throughout the ceremony, and it was a lot of it. Sometimes it was discomfort and noticing how my body truly felt there, and the trauma that was being stored there released, and the acknowledgement of those babies that I miscarried, So I was going through that and just holding myself and holding the babies and allowing myself to be cradled and held and taken care of, right? Receiving myself, receiving the energies. And it was just so beautiful. And I know this might seem intense and kind of crazy for some people, but this is my experience. And I share this in hopes that this reaches the hearts and ears of those who most need to hear it, right? So it was a really beautiful night. The second night was very deep, very heavy purge, a lot of movement in the body. It was just shaking it up, releasing old energy, things that were no longer serving me, obstructions, and bringing this stuff to awareness. Now, I'm going to take a drink first. Hold on. So this was also something that I was becoming conscious of also in the first night. But every time I would go to the bathroom, it was really difficult for me. And what I realized is that what was coming into my awareness was a lot of shame. And some of that was from potty training, and not that I can specifically remember. It's just this undertone of energy, and I think a lot of that was my mother's frustration and whatever she was dealing with. So I was experiencing what that was, my inner child having that discomfort and that shame about potty training and trying to do a good job and wipe myself, and it was dirty and I was dirty and it was gross. And Mama Aya would talk to me like it's okay, and she was reparenting me, reprogramming me, and teaching me what it was that good mother, that good mama potty training me. So I was going through that experience and allowing those painful emotions and discomforts and shame to arise, and understanding them, while also being given the grace of not having to relive a specific terrifying or traumatic experience. And then another experience that I found in the bathroom was the shame and the guilt that I had been carrying from being molested as a child and having to clean myself up, and how dirty I felt, and just kind of going through that. So I know some of this stuff is heavy and uncomfortable, but it's my experience and what I went through. And I'm also just, I'm still processing this even as I speak about it and I share these words and they come out of my mouth. And so this was something that I experienced throughout all three journeys. And also, I didn't realize it, but on that first ayahuasca experience, and not allowing myself to get up and go to the bathroom and take care of myself. So I had to allow myself, I surrendered. I didn't have to do anything. So I allowed myself to surrender. And what I found was different dimensions of myself. I was experiencing these aspects as a child. So I was a very innocent child. I'd be like, oh, it's okay. Gotta clean, clean, clean. And it began to, as the awareness of what I was having as a subconscious programming and in the unconscious and in these subtle realms and in these densities and pain that I was holding on to and shame as they were arising. Mama Aya was guiding me and treating me very delicately and mothering me and nurturing me. And then I was doing that to myself as well. And then I was experiencing it as a child, as a holy, divine child that we all are, right? As this innocent child being so graciously and gently retrained in the bathroom. And it was just so beautiful and so profound and so healing. And just please be patient with me while I share these stories, because this is a lot of vulnerability for me, and in the sacred share, right? So thank you. So that was very healing, and that's a lot of my second night. And then after some time and after the chair and I got back to my mat and was guided back to my bed, the medicine woman used the agua. I hope I'm saying that right. It's like this extracted plant medicine oil, like sacred anointing, heart opening medicine. And you put it on your heart and in your hair, and it's just smells so good, right? So you're like feeling it, right? So that was happening, and she was nurturing me and putting me back into bed like a little child. And something really profound. I felt the Holy Spirit again, the spirit of Aya, and this deep, wild, profound, just love. Love like I'd never experienced, this holy, sacred love. Like I felt like I was making love with Aya, not in an erotic sense, but in an innocent, energetic sense, that my being and her being, her presence, were experiencing the fruits of love, the joy of the essence of love. And I've never experienced anything like that before, and it was so beautiful. And I was kind of in and out of these convulsions again, and energies moving through my body and resetting the nervous system, or what I believe to be happening, and opening the meridian system and the energy channels of the body. And I saw my eyes were kind of flickering, and above me were all of these feathers with eyes in them, like angels. And it was just so beautiful and so profound. and just made me feel so safe. And the deeper I surrendered, the more I continued to have these beautiful emotions. And, she would call me back, my sweet girl, come home. It's time to come home. So I was in these intensities and these portals of intensities and emotions and experiences that are all within me, just waiting to arise. It's not always the heavy. And I think that's a profound acceptance and teaching for me on this experience, is that the experiences that I've had in this life, where I repressed so much and detached. And so I was closing the door on joy and on love. Oh, and that was another beautiful thing. So Mama Aya was showing me how playful my son is, right? And how I close the door on that joy all the time because of my subconscious, my energy, my ability to sit in those spaces with him, being task oriented, like we need to hurry up and get this done and go, like even his me potty training him. And these were unconscious, and I've had to, and I still am working through it, right? So it was seeing that and forgiving myself and acknowledging that and bringing that into my awareness and accepting it. And one thing I could have done, I could have spiraled down in the eyes of heavy judgment, the way I was experiencing life in the beginning, right? And I could have like really damaged myself, like, oh, how could I do that? And oh, woe is my son, and look at this, and I'm a terrible mom. Oh, God, But instead, and there was some of that, these things would come in, but I would come back into my awareness, my presence, and my love, and my compassion, and I would forgive myself. And so it's just like, like, thank you, divine. Thank you, Mama Aya, for showing me this, for bringing this forward, for raising my consciousness, for raising my awareness, for opening my heart. Right? So, yeah. Get a little strong, a little intense, right? So, following this beautiful experience, I got to dance and just feel the gentleness and the soft energy and be with my babies and myself and Mama Aya and all of these dimensions and aspects. And it was really beautiful, also difficult, and also surrendering to pain and suffering and joy and love, right? So that was my second night. So the third day, integration, that was pretty cool. Oh yeah. So the second night when we got back home to our I think it's called Jungle Lounge, and I was sharing a room with a couple, so there was three of us, and I got to share, lucky me, which I really mean it, because I don't want to say their names, but this couple, they were amazing, and yeah, so I get to share a room with them. Sorry guys, on the way back. Okay, so bedtime, right? Laura was still really feeling the medicine, and one of the things she said to me, she said something to me like, blah blah blah, blah, my sweet girl. And that just landed so much in my heart because it was validation that Mama Aya was speaking to her, but also how deeply and profoundly we were all connected to during this medicine. And so in that moment, I had this like deep understanding and knowing of this, right? And this continued to evolve to show me that the healing and the presence and what I'm allowing to arise and process, and my capacity to sit with that suffering, my capacity to sit with these intensities and joy and love, the capacity that I'm willing to allow within myself is affecting the whole group. Everything that they're doing is affecting me. And we're just all lifting and rising together and falling together in some ways, right? So, yeah, I just wanted to share that. And so the third day, right, that was the last night. So the third day for integration from the second night, Dana was in my group, and she was like the leader for this integration group, and it's absolutely perfect. So the first time was like the masculine, grounded Victor. Then it was the second day, it was the flowy, nurturing, soft Dana. And so I got to sit with Dana, and it was really beautiful because I was able to share the gratitude and the love that I was experiencing and open my heart to her and be received by her and cry in my group as well, right? And also to share the acknowledgement that I was closing the door of joy on my son. And now I'm aware of that, and the sadness, right? So there was just all of this stuff. And it was just really beautiful to share that with her and my group. And then listening to everybody else's stories and their experiences and the challenges and the things that they were facing. So the third night, I kind of became a little nervous. I was up and down and a little bit of fear creeping in. And I think it was because that second night was just so intense. I'm just like, the divine light of Mother, Father, God was within me, and Mama Aya, and those energies, like what's next? Like, can I handle this again? Because that was intense, right? Excuse me. So, the third night. Oh yeah, I forgot. So Aaron, he did not join us for the third night of ceremony, but he led a meditation, which was really beautiful because that morning I was laying in bed and I was going through my signature, a journey within meditation. And in this meditation, I ground and I connect to Mother Earth, Mama Gaia. I communicate with her, and she guides me to my inner child, and I communicate with my inner child. And then she guides me to my ancestors, and I connect to my ancestors. So in bed, before I got out of bed that morning, I was going very deep in this meditation. So when Aaron came in with his meditation, and all of these things just seemed to like divinely line up and to also show me how connected we all are, right? In his meditation, he called it a restorative meditation. And he connected us to Mother Earth. And then when he brought us to the heart space, he brought us to a cave. And that is a space that I work in. So when I connect to Mother Earth, I see a cave. And for a while with my meditations, I was guiding people to a cave. And I stopped naming it the cave because some people had fear. So I encourage people in this meditation to find like either they're in a cave or a tropical oasis, something that allows the individual more expression. So if a cave for some reason is scary to them, they don't have that resistance, or that experience. So anyway, sorry, back to Aaron. So it was just so profound in the connection because we were going into the cave of our hearts, and it was just so amazing. And then connecting to Father, Son. And so we were grounding in these energies, as above, so below, so within, so without. And yeah, it was really, really, really powerful. And so moving into that third night of ceremony, the medicine was much softer, so deeply profound. And I had a lot of the experiences where in my third eye I was seeing all of these spirits, and Mama Ayahuasca was talking to me and giving me space to nurture the practice with myself. So, in the practice of being present with these emotions and present with my suffering, these things would arise, and then I would gently take care of them and mother them. And my first experience in 2024 with ayahuasca, my first night, I believe, I called this mothering my darkness. So that's really what I was. I was just really kind of tapped into this divine, feminine, mothering energy for myself. And so Mama Ayahuasca would do it with me and for me. Then I would do it with me and for me, and so on and so forth. Then I would get distracted and I would go down these places and she would guide me back, or I would guide myself back, and sit with these things because, some of it's just so uncomfortable and you're like, ugh, I gotta move and don't want to deal with this. And, but I would allow myself to just kind of go through. I think that's the biggest thing, is really just surrendering and trusting and trust. Even though you might be afraid, and I was afraid, and I would acknowledge that. I'm afraid, I'm sad, and then sometimes my babies would come in and I would hold them again. And hold myself and love myself and treat myself, reparenting myself, reprogramming and showing up for that little girl who wasn't spoken to nicely, who didn't feel worthy, who felt ashamed, who felt like a problem. I didn't have my parents, my mom didn't have the capacity to be present and patient with me. And so that left me hurrying and feeling like I wasn't enough or something was wrong with me. And her inability to regulate herself made me feel responsible. Like I had to regulate her and I had to be a certain way to not upset mommy, right? Or certain ways to protect myself so I wouldn't be a certain way, to not be seen and not to cause a disruptance and not to experience even joy and fun and play, because sometimes bringing attention to myself would put me in harm's way. So a lot of this second journey with ayahuasca is really helping me profoundly and deeply on the inner child journey. And not just the heavy emotions, but, reparenting and hearing my inner child and allowing her to come up. And it's not like a schizophrenic event or this like borderline personality event where I'm, different personalities, but these are aspects of myself that exist within me, and how I'm expressing and experiencing this profound healing. And I think part of it for me is the inner child experiencing the joy, the love, the attention safely, little by little, is what's helping to bring this, my vessel and my bodies, into full alignment. And when I say bodies, it's the mental body, the etheric body, the spiritual body, the physical body, the nervous system, the heart opening, being rooted and grounded, these sacred experiences, right? So the third night was a lot of gentleness and a lot of this experience. And something I will say, so the first ayahuasca experience in 2024, at my second cup, I would always ask the medicine woman for just a little bit because it was like, that was intense. This time around, I would close my eyes and I would acknowledge I'm afraid, I'm uncomfortable, I'm scared, but I'm going to trust her. I'm going to trust you. I'm afraid. I would go through like my mantra, I'm going to trust, I'm going to trust. And then sometimes I'd have to tap my shoulder to wake me back up to take my cup. And I did it, and I'm really thankful that I did it, because the medicine and the facilitator and that connection and the divine, and when you're soft enough, you can hear and know, is my belief right now. And it just allowed me to have these deeper experiences with surrendering. Mm. And so the third night, I had a lot of dancing and just feeling in my body and expression and movement and more of that convulsion. And just kind of allowed it, And one of the things, and of course also, seeing all the spirits and all of that and the experiences and the mothering theme. But one of the beautiful things that I'm becoming more and more aware of and trying to understand as it comes is towards the end, after the second cup, I fell asleep for some time. As to how much time that was in that realm of reality, no clue. But what happened when I woke up was like I was moving through this portal very quickly, right? And in this portal were snapshots of trauma that I experienced. And so this is really heavy, but I was raped in high school. I was like 14 or 15 by a college boy. And then I was raped a couple of more times in my early 20s by different men, right? Plus the other stuff from childhood. So, but this was about being raped. And I think, so it was like, this is how loving and graceful and just conscious ayahuasca is. So, all of the work that she had been doing with me and where I was, and the healing that my inner child needed, and where I am on this rebirth cycle as an infant, she put me to sleep graciously. And I think when I woke up and saw this portal of all this suffering very quickly, but didn't fully experience it and dive into each nook and cranny and like re-trauma or observing the trauma, she was showing me these things because it was something she had been working on for me and allowed me to sleep so that she could go in and work on this for me. And, this is really heavy, I know, but it's also just so beautiful and so profound. And you're like a good mother protecting me and knowing what I have the capacity to hold. And she gave me that grace. So, I think I need some chapstick. Like to worship the sun. Tries me out a little bit. So that, my friends, is my ceremony with ayahuasca. I did my best to share what I could, the profound moments for me. And as time will continue to unfold, so will this experience, and new things will arise, new perspectives, deeper understandings and truths, right? As my awareness and my ability to sit with these spaces and intensities and densities within myself, this process will continue. Excuse me. So, what I like to do right now is I'd like to drop in and invite you to sit with me for a little meditative practice where we can begin opening ourselves to allow what wants to arise in a very gentle, soft way, so that we may safely sit in some discomfort together. So if you'd like to do this, I'd invite you to close your eyes or soften your gaze. And we're going to take a couple of deep breaths. Just from all the crying, I'm a little mucusy. Just going to clear that out. Excuse me. Okay. So in the nose and out the mouth. Good. Beautiful. And just knowing with each exhale, we're going to allow ourselves to relax more and more. Good. Bringing our awareness to the top of our head. We're just going to gently scan the body, noticing how we feel. Is our head heavy? Any tension? And gently move down to our neck, our shoulders, our back, our right arm, our left arm. As we scan the body, noticing if there's any tension or heaviness, and allowing ourselves to breathe in relaxation. Good. Moving down the chest to our abdomen, our hips, our lower back. If you need to wiggle, just allow yourself. Allow whatever comes up to come. Good. Moving down the hips into our legs, our knees, our calves, our shins, our feet. Good. Beautiful. Just going to bring our awareness to our heart space. And placing a hand there, or two hands. And what's coming up for you? How does this feel? Is it heavy? Is there sadness? Is there joy? Just taking a moment and allowing the first thing to arise and trusting that first thing. Beautiful. Good job. So tapping into this heart space. What is this emotion, this feeling, this energy asking for? Let's take a moment. What do you need from me? And allowing the first thing that arises. This could be a word, a picture, a knowing. Good. Beautiful. Thank you. So that, my friend, that is a little exercise I have to share with you. I hope this helps you on your journey. And thank you for joining me on today's storytime session.